So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us this evening. My name is Fea Bramido. I'm the admissions officer here at the school, but I'm also a parent of 2 children who currently attend. So it's a pleasure to welcome you both professionally and personally. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for tonight, Mr. Lawrence Hilditch. Mr. Lawrence has extensive experience across early years, primary and secondary education, and works as an educational consultant supporting schools in Cyprus, Europe, and the Middle East. Tonight's session will be interactive, and we expect it to both be encouraging and insightful for all of us. We are delighted to have Mr. Lawrence with us and very much look forward to hearing his insights and expertise. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome.
So can you hear me without the microphone? Yes. Okay, and you can understand my Northern Irish accent? Okay. Which is even more nice. Well, can I take this off and walk with it? Okay. The wireless one isn't working. I'm not sure why. Sure? Yeah. Yeah.
Hello.
Oh,
hello.
Maybe it is. Okay.
1 2 1 2.
Let's do that. Thank you. Thank you for your warm welcome. It's really nice to be here and to be with you. And what we're going to do tonight is maybe a little bit more interactive than some of the other sessions that you've been having. So we want to hear more from you than from me. But what I'd like to do is to try to set everything in a little bit of a context so that we have some understanding. And then you can look at what is on your table and we can have a little bit of thinking together and some questions. The title of our topic this evening is Understanding in Loco, Parentis. What does that mean? And we're going to think about parents as partners in the well-being of our children. When I was a young, newly qualified teacher back in Belfast in 1986, I think it was, this is where I taught. And it was a real experience. It was 3 miles from my home, but it was a totally different world. The classes that I taught were classes of what were then termed misfits, and they were children of all ages with all sorts of different issues and problems. Some of them were social, political, in that part of Belfast also paramilitary, religious, and educational. But one of those students was called Billy Joe, and her mother gave her that name because she loved country and Western music. Now, Billy Joe was very tuneful, and one of the ways I was able to get her to learn stuff at school was to set everything to a tune or a rhyme or a chant or whatever. So eventually, in those days, we had to pass the learning of our times tables. Does anybody remember those days? You know, when you had to go 3 noughts or nothing, 3 ones are 3, 3 twos are 6. And of course, this is what we started to do with Billy Joe, and we are encouraging her mum at home to help her along with the chant and to do the singing and to learn her actual times tables. And that all worked very, very well until one day I was watching Billy Joe as everybody else was saying their tables. And I didn't think that her mouth was actually in sync with the numbers that everybody else was saying. So I got up close beside her, and I realized Billy Joe was going na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na. And I said to her, Billy Joe, what are you doing? And she said, oh, Mr. Hilditch, she said, I know the tune, but I can't get the words. And I tell that story because in that situation, who is responsible for Billy Joe learning her words or her numbers? Is it the teacher solely? Or what sort of pressure should the teacher put on the parent to help that learning to take place? Or what does the parent think the responsibility of the teacher is towards her child to get those numbers into her head and to be able to cope with numeracy in her life. And for that reason, I want us to look at what our expectations are in regard to in loco parentis, what it means when we give our children into the hands of the school and the school teachers for so many hours per day. What is our expectation? What is the teacher and the school's expectation? And what really are we talking about? With poor little Billy Joe, it was time to talk. It was time to talk to her parents, it was time to talk to her, but what about and under what circumstances and what were the boundaries? And really when we talk about in loco parentis, we need to start thinking about what we mean and what school might mean, especially today in 2026. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for a little bit. I'm going to remind us that we are all parents and grandparents and teachers who together, in one way or another, have an impact upon the lives of our children and our children's education. The term in loco parentis literally means in the place of a parent. But what does that mean for us? What does that mean in our school? What does it mean for us at home? What are we doing when we bring our children to school, and what are we expecting the school to do for our children? We know the phrase itself is from the Latin, and we know that it describes the legal and the moral responsibility that schools have, or universities or colleges for that matter, to act as appropriate caregivers when children are under the supervision of the establishment. But today, what we mean is no longer quite as straightforward as it used to be. Modern education exists in a world that is shaped by an increased awareness of children's rights, greater parental involvement in institutional education, and sometimes we might even call that scrutiny of what we do professionally in school. There are safeguarding policies, there is legal accountability, as well as a whole new world which has emerged through the digital environment that goes on not only within our school walls, but beyond it as well, and influences our children. And sometimes influences them through school because of friendships that bring their own forms of coercion to our children, or through non-friendships, which brings bullying to play, which often explodes in one way or another in our own homes. So the question is, what does in loco parentis mean for us? Are we as schools acting in the place of parents? Are we expected to? What are the boundaries? I want to place this in its historical context, because this term is a term we're all familiar with, and it's a term that kind of trips off our tongue, and it's a term that we use to describe what we do with our children when we leave them in school. But originally, schools had a very broad, basic remit and a common authority. Teachers were able to discipline students as they thought and expected a parent would do at home. Decisions about students were made on a one-size-fits-all blanket. But that's not the case today. Decisions were made and actions were taken that were rarely questioned by parents at home. And I think the more senior members who are here today can remember that if you ever got rapped over the knuckles with the ruler at school, you did not go home and tell your parents, because you may have got rapped harder at home than you did at school. But that's all changed. It's different today. Children and parents have rights and right of involvement. So what does it mean when we place our children into the care of the school? Today, legal developments which protect the rights of children as human beings and individuals, quite rightly, have altered. And therefore, this phrase does not actually mean what we might think it means or mean what we used to think it meant. There's also a growing awareness of the diversity of family life and the diversity of family values, which means that today one rule doesn't any longer fit all children the way it used to. The increased professionalisation of our teaching has also changed how educators view themselves as being in the place of a parent. And of course, new safeguarding frameworks have been needful to stop the abuse of children, both at home and at school. So today, if you like, educators don't replace parents. They're not there in the place of the parents to make the same moral decisions that they used to make, but they are there to partner with them with clearly defined limits being set. So what does that mean for us today? Today, the term that we use so freely has got a change of meaning. It means that in Loco Parentis is less about authority and more about a duty of care that comes from both parents and from teachers and from the school as a whole. And I think in modern education, there are 3 words that describe what it means to be in Loco Parentis today. And these 3 words are important. I want to take you through them before we start thinking together about what it means for us. We'll look at the words in our groups in a few minutes. But with these 3 words, responsibility, partnership, and boundaries, we begin to reconstruct the whole idea of what it means to leave our children in the care of someone else, especially in the care of a school. First of all, schools are responsible. When parents leave their children, the school has a responsibility for keeping all children of all parents safe and well. That's the good ones and the bad ones, the greatly behaved ones and the poorly behaved ones, the wise ones and the maybe not so wise ones, and the different cultures, of course, that all our children come from today. We have a responsibility of keeping all children well. And of course, in that, we also have the responsibility of educating them. And that means that schools are responsible and should be accountable for the physical safety of every child in its care, which means appropriate premises, appropriate supervision, appropriate risk management. And then also schools should be responsible for the emotional well-being of every child, which means good anti-bullying policies and prevention strategies, and appropriate mental health awareness and counselling facilities. They should be part and parcel of every modern school. And thirdly, schools have the responsibility of safeguarding every child, which means identifying and reporting truthfully and openly concerns that are raised, however and wherever they might arise. Now, when a child is released to a school, I think there are a number of things that parents expect, because parents are giving temporary responsibility to staff at the school to make immediate decisions when parents aren't present. That's part of what is expected, I think. This means that they ought to take responsibility as teachers and staff in school for handling conflict between students within the school, responding to illness or injury that is suddenly and comes out of the blue, and managing behaviours in what we might call real time, because it's happening there and then. Any responsible decisions must be reasonable, proportionate, and in every child's best interest. And I say those things because in a moment or two, we're going to think about what that means in terms of boundaries. Teachers are expected to be responsible enough role models so that the respectful behaviour of the teachers is mirrored in their students. Teachers are expected to promote inclusion and fairness and to support student development beyond what is pure academics. And I think in most situations, teachers, schools and school boards take all of those responsibilities very seriously. But what are the boundaries? Because that's the second of the three words. What do we set before us to achieve accountability and good monitoring? I think this is where modern interpretations of this phrase become really important. I think there are limits set on authority, both of teachers and schools. And I must stress that teachers are actually not parents, and nor should they ever be regarded as being the parent of your child. They should not be expected to make your decisions for you, but they ought to be able to know what kind of decisions you will make, and that requires openness and truthfulness. Teachers cannot and should not impose their own personal values on any child, which might conflict with family values or beliefs, and they cannot make major life decisions for a child or a student. I don't know whether you remember choosing your middle or senior year subjects. I can remember being forced to do economics and physics, although I hated both of them, but there was no choice because that's what the teachers told me to do. And my parents thought, well, if the teachers say that, you have to do it. I failed both, by the way. But that has all changed, and it should not be happening in the same way today. Teachers and schools ought not to be making decisions for parents and children, although sometimes I have to stress that does have to be made, especially in a smaller school context, because of limitations on staff and resources. Having said all of that, I think it's important that you know that a school such as our school here at the American Academy takes all of that operating ideal quite seriously, with clear guidelines and policies which are available for you, and also with legal frameworks that give good external oversight that comes from the school council itself, that comes from the Cyprus Education Ministry, and in the case of this school, also through the Middle States Association, which gives accreditation and recognition to the school. And that, in turn, in three ways, provides different sorts of accountability to encourage every parent that their child is being looked after well and professionally in this school. So what do parents do? What is the parent's expectation? Parents should expect good communication between the school and them, but also between them and the school. I'm a great advocate of saying, and Miss Angela knows this, I mean, if we don't know what we don't know, we don't actually travel very far. If we don't know there are things, if we do know there are things we don't know, we begin to succeed. And that's true in the whole area of communication with parents and with staff and with the school. Today, parents expect good communication. They expect to ask questions and make decisions. And they expect to advocate strongly for their children. Therefore, we can say that in Loco Parentis has become a two-way street, not just a one-way street where everybody's agreed for this amount of time, parents make decisions, and all the rest is up to the school. Things have changed. It's no longer simply a case of teachers taking over the discipline of the child when the parent is not there, when the child has been left at school. It now means that the parent can and must fully engage with the school, and that's the parental responsibility, so that in Parentis they can advise and help and guide the school as to what is best for their child. And that, if I may say so, is totally the responsibility of the parent to initiate good information. The sharing of such information helps teachers make good, informed decisions during each school day, and that is vital. So if you like, in Loco Parentis doesn't mean abdicating responsibility, as I think it once did, but rather it means partnering in responsibility for each child. Which brings us to the third word, just very quickly, which is partnership. Partnership is important. But it also brings us, sadly, I think, to the digital dimension of child rearing today. Everything is just a little bit more complicated than it used to be, isn't it? And especially in the realm of social media. The digital age has not only revolutionized our relationships with each other and our homes and our classrooms and education, but it also is in the process of revolutionizing the life of your child and our children. Screen time is increasingly important to your child as they grow in age and development and wisdom, and it's important that neither parents nor teachers abdicate their own responsibility for how that plays out when the children are under our care. Neither should we abdicate the responsibility from ourselves onto another body and then blame them for behaving obtusely. All too often, there is a blame game that goes on, a blame game of responsibility between teachers and parents regarding what happens in social media, especially when things start to go wrong. That should not be happening. We should be in partnership, dealing with those things that affect our child, and forming, if you like, a pincer movement to eradicate what are unpleasant and unwelcome intrusions that often come. And Loco Parentis becomes more complex when bullying starts and when it happens. And that can be online, and it can be inside, and it can be outside school. But it affects the whole child all of the time. And when students of school age are interacting in individual spaces via coercion or bullying, problems can arise. And in that area, the boundaries of in loco parentis become really, really important, but they also become really, really blurred. And often, neither parents nor teachers want to take sole responsibility for what is happening to the child. So we have to ask a question. Where really does our responsibility begin and end as school and as teachers if we're taking the place of a parent? And where do parents think it starts and ends if we are leaving our children in the care of a school? In Loco Parentis' old model meant that the school often took the role of what every parent would do. But that doesn't happen anymore. Today, the model we wish to have in any school is parent and teachers partnering together and therefore delivering effective education to the child. And that depends on three really important things that have to be built up between parents and teachers, or parents and a school. The first is that we have to have a shared trust in each other. It's not a one-way thing. As we said earlier, it's a two-way street. And that trust has to be based on absolute truthfulness, the sharing of what we know about our child, whether that is at home or in school. We have to be able to be open with each other. And we have to be able to have free communication with one another between parents and teachers and parents and schools. And the third thing is that there has to be a shared truthfulness about our common expectations. So have we ever sat down and thought, what do I really expect the school to do and not do? And what responsibility do I as a parent have to take for how my child behaves in school towards staff and towards other children? Because if we start blaming each other when the things go wrong, then the child, and you know something? Children can be very manipulative, right? You know, they don't get what they want off mommy, they go and get it off daddy every time. And they do the same in school between adults, between friends, between children. So we have to be really truthful with what is going on with our child so that we can affect the best environment and educational outcome for them. When that sort of partnership works, then all students feel really supported and really secure. And we discover that conflicts are easily resolved and constructively so too. And we discover that learning outcomes improve for everybody. But when it breaks down, misunderstandings grow, role becomes blurred, situations become unclear, and our excellent little manipulators manipulate. And actually, we both end up, as they say, with egg on our faces, whilst they're all smiles and all beams. They are not caught in the middle. They manipulate us. And they are in the middle directing what the outcomes are. And that's not always the most positive of things that should be happening. Years ago, an old and a much wiser man than I am, on witnessing a minor disagreement between me and my then 10-year-old son, gave me a really important piece of advice that I've never forgotten. He said, "Please don't argue with him. Just keep reminding him that you have never been the father of a 10-year-old before, and help him to understand that you are in a learning process too." And then he added, "Actually, I'm still using that phrase with my 42-year-old son to this very day. But my point is, when we think of this term in Loco, Parentis, in the end, we must always remember for parents, for teachers, and for children, it's actually a process of ongoing learning. It's about building relationship. It's about coming together for the common good, not only of the school, but of your child. And it is a process of ongoing learning for all of us. Now, not one of us are perfect. Not one of us have got all the answers all the time. We need one another, and as parents and teachers, we need to grow together in partnership to make the very best outcomes happen for our children. Correct? Correct. So let's think about some of those things as I set you to do a little bit of work. You have an envelope, a brown envelope on your table. You can get into smaller groups or you can mingle a little bit, but make sure there are both teachers and parents in your group, or a representative of some or other of them, because in the envelope you will find a few tasks for you to do together. I want you to choose from 2 sets of questions and then discuss one scenario, and we'll come back together and we'll see how that pans out. Will you choose one parent question and one teacher question to answer? Only one, not all 3, okay? One parent question to answer, one teacher question to answer, and then discuss the little scenario and decide what you might do, and have a look to see if there is a difference in your approach from being a parent and being a teacher, okay? And we give you 20 minutes or so to do that, and then we'll have feedback and plenary and questions. Off you go. So to start to pull something together, we'll take a few minutes just to see where you got to. Would anybody from any group like to share what you thought, or how maybe your idea in Loco Parentis has altered, changed, or surfaced for the first time into your thought? Anybody want to say anything from any of the questions or scenarios? I'm going to ask the laughing group in the corner. They get the badge for the most fun group. So will we go to them first? Anything you want to share?
Okay. First, we started with the question of the parents. What do you expect from teachers when your child is at school beyond academics? So we brainstormed, and of course, beyond academics, we would like our children to feel comfortable and mature, and to feel that they are growing in a nice community, and who is really handling them, not only academically, also personally and morally, and to put rules and boundaries for them, for some good manners and things. This doesn't do any harm. And of course, we found that communication is key between the parents and the teachers. So if any problems, I think the open communication is very important. I don't know, do we have to add something else? And of course, within respect and things to be really the smoothest way. And because we said that the kids, for them, their teachers are their role models. So sometimes, of course, most of the time, they follow what their teacher tells them more than the parents. So... Yeah.
There's nothing worse than your child looking at you and saying, but Miss Angela said.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's it.
I can understand that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyone else like to share something?
We did the same question. Safety, physical safety, emotional support.
To say into the...
Yes, to feel good, accepted, and for the teacher to be a good role model. This is what, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's coming through loud.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
No pressure there. Can I ask, how do you think communication is working between parents and teachers at the academy?
Get the mic so he can record. Over there. Get the mic and the other one.
Okay. Thank you. How do you think communication is between parents and teachers at the academy? How's that working in practice?
I think it's not bad because actually we are a small school. Most of us know everybody. I mean, it's easy to find the parents. Some of them just bring them to school, you can see them outside, or you communicate by email or phone call. I prefer a phone call. I don't prefer an email when I want to address something. But yeah, I don't know if anybody else has anything to say about the communication.
Anyone else?
Maybe parent?
Parent?
How do you find the communication?
The communication has been good so far. We've been emailing each other, and if any urgent questions with a phone call, everything has been pretty well solved. And another thing I wanted to underline is what I found important when you spoke about the boundaries, that as a mother of a year one student, I have never had children who went to school, I received a presentation with strict rules of the school, which was good, which I liked, and I read them aloud to my kid so that he knew what to expect, so that I know what to expect. It was about bullying, it was about, behavior, general rules of the behavior and some specific rules, and that was I forgot the word in English, but actually it gave me a good base, a foundation of what to expect, and for him what to expect from school. So it's kind of, we can also perceive it as a communication factor, but it was written, and we knew beforehand what to expect, so it was good as well for me.
Good. Can I ask you, as parents, do you think parents are always absolutely truthful about their child's circumstances and situations, or is there maybe a social etiquette that tries to cover things up so that everybody's working in the dark?
as a human beings, we're emotional. Sometimes we can be overreacting. Sometimes we can live in our own situations. So we cannot always be 100% sure and 100% clear of what is happening. So it's good to have a second opinion, probably.
Yeah, yeah. Did anybody do section B? Was anybody had a set B?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah? Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of set B questions. There's set A questions, set B questions. Okay. Can we, let me see. I'll not, yeah.
So our scenario was if a student accesses inappropriate content or is involved in cyberbullying during school hours.
Okay.
And the question was, what does trust in a school look like to you?
Okay. And what were your
So
conclusions?
we discussed it, the scenario, and we discussed as a parent and also the responsibility of a teacher when it comes to their devices, that we know that there is a policy that our children are not allowed to use their phones during school hours. But Zara and I both have children in the secondary school, and they use laptops or tablets because they're allowed to. They have their e-books downloaded on them from year 8. But I know from my kids and other kids, I'm sure as well, that they've got their social media accounts on their laptops and tablets. So when a teacher is giving a lesson, she may not realize that the student is on their laptop, but actually in the meantime receiving notifications, scrolling media, could be doing anything, accessing inappropriate content. So we discussed about how the school has a responsibility. So we know that the Wi-Fi of the school doesn't allow for Instagram, but kids have their mobile phones with them and they're hotspotting network from their mobile phones. So they have full access to anything. They could be watching Netflix during a class.
So whose responsibility is it to deal with that? Is it the schools? Is it the parents? Or
Just because they're on the premises of the school, it doesn't mean that it's the school's responsibility, and it should be on the child. I mean, they should know it's classroom time. I know the pirasmos, the temptation is high, but it's not the time for that. So the parent, the child has responsibility for it. It's shared. I don't think it's just because it's happening in the classroom, it should fall on the teacher. It should be, in a way, checking what's going on, and also on the child to know when to do it.
yeah, and I think that's particularly when the parent and the school's communication is really, really effective. For part of my career, I was superintendent of 13 schools in Palestine, from Gaza right up to the Zababde, and then also in West Jerusalem in 2 Christian schools. And in those situations, a mobile had to be really carried by the student because of all sorts of different attacks, and the parents wanted to know at any moment that they were going to be safe. But again, it was a major job in hand to teach the students of all ages, actually, how to use that device appropriately and when to use it and when not to use it. And some of our teachers actually had little shoe boxes in their classroom, and the students put their own devices in the shoebox. And if they were needed for class activity, they asked permission to take them out and use them. And there was a little bit of supervision.
But if they've got their tablets and their laptops,
Yeah.
during the
For
lessons,
lessons. Yeah.
they're hotspotting
Yeah.
their network from their mobile phones. So
Yeah.
unless their mobile phone is on like flight mode,
Yeah.
they can still access
Yeah.
everything.
Of course they can. Of course they can. So does the Parent-Teacher Association save up and get lots of devices that the school can use? Does the school join with parents to try to get this, or companies? I mean, what's the answer? I mean, if a school had their own devices for use, that the children did not need to bring them in, and they could upload, download, is that a way forward? Right? You know, those are good discussions. Those are good thoughts to have. You know, so that everything was provided in school and could be firewalled and could be used appropriately.
They have their own personal devices that they're given specifications, minimum specifications. So someone could have an iPad or a MacBook or
Yeah.
with anything on it. It's not being checked.
Yeah.
As a parent, I think we're under a lot of, goodness, it's probably better with, I think we're under a lot of pressure because
That's good.
you hear things like, can I get a new phone? So and so. So and so's got this phone, and I say, I'm not so and so. This is your phone. Can I have a MacBook? I haven't even got a MacBook. I think digital education is important, but I don't think they need to bring their own devices to a school. I think the teachers need AI training, and we should be able to do that ourselves, in my opinion.
Any other thoughts? Anybody want to ask a question? Sure. It's good conversation. Thank you.
No, I would like to stress that lately they've been talking that, you know, Finland and Scandinavian countries were the first one to start using the tablets for their kids in their schools. And now they found out that this is something that's not really of benefit for the kids, and they're probably going to go back to the books. So I feel that whenever the kids can have a book in front of them, is better than an e-book. So if we can minimize as much as possible the use of the tablets or whatever, this would be even better. But of course, it's a curriculum. I don't know, the schools have to follow something. But as much as possible to minimize the exposure of the kids to the tablets would be great, really.
Because we have it from year 8. Year 8 students are allowed to bring laptops and tablets, not year 7, but even still, year 8 are still, let's say, they're still young to be handling also a MacBook or like an expensive device, and also having ebooks. And like Zahra mentioned, it's also more attractive to the parents because the ebook subscriptions are much cheaper than the textbooks.
It's interesting that in that whole regard there's a social element, there's an educational element, and there's a risk element, I think. And there is always a lot of pressure for every student to have the same phone or the same computer as everybody else. And that's one whole aspect that parents just can't cope with and keep up with. I mean, but the other side of the story is that an awful lot of education boards and exam boards now only do their materials in ebooks, unless I'm wrong. So there's a need for electronic digital material to be in school, but it's really a good conversation for parents and teachers to have as to how best that can happen, and what sort of boundaries could be set under what circumstances, because it's a good discussion. Angela, you're looking at me. Do you want to say anything?
No,
Hey.
no,
You okay? I don't know whether that was a hard stare or whether it was I'm a loss somewhere. Okay. Anyone else like to contribute? No. They need it for the video, apparently.
The question was who has the responsibility, wasn't it? I mean, in the beginning we said that, yeah. So whatever happens, whatever, if we go back to books or we continue with the same tablets or whatever, the answer for the question was who has the responsibility? And I think, okay, the teacher can do so much. I mean, there are 25 students or 20. The teacher cannot see everybody at the same time, but if the student gets caught, he needs to have the responsibility, and then the parents, together with the teachers, decide how they're going to go forward with this. I mean, there is a limit. It's not, okay, we won't have tablets because we don't want the students to get the responsibility, and yeah.
In that, the parents have to support the teachers.
Yes, this is what I mean. They need to support, yes. The teachers need the support. They need to understand that, okay, these are the rules. The students are not allowed to go on social media or whatever during the lesson. And if that happens and the student gets caught, then the parent should work with us. And support, yeah.
From the side of the teachers, I think that we should be honest with ourselves and with the parents when we communicate with them. If mistakes can happen, we're working with people. It's not things, and mistakes can happen. We have to be honest. If it is our mistake, we have to undertake it. But on the other hand, we have to find a solution, and there we need cooperation, and we need the parents to stand by us so that we can find the solution. If we start to argue, blame game, then you've said that we're going to lose both the parents and the teachers are going to lose. And that's crucial. Okay.
Yep.
I wanted to add specifically about the digital issue, that it's actually a pretty recent thing that we're facing. This challenge is pretty recent. So there is not a definite answer about who is responsible, because even government feels responsible. We know that in France, and President Macron, when he met President Christodoulidis here in the French school, they discussed that even governments are responsible for that. So what parents can do in the cases that we discussed is set, for example, parental control over the SIM card. For example, that from this SIM card, the internet only can be accessed to specific sites, websites. So parents have to take control of that, the government has to take control of that, and working together we can do that. But it's pretty a recent challenge that we're facing. We have to know that, and humanity has never been in this situation before, probably. And also screen time is bad for eyes, so for the vision. We have to take that into account as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm reminded a number of years ago I was asked to go and inspect a student who was giving trouble in the class, and he was sitting at the back, and we'll call him Andreas for the sake of argument, but Andreas was sitting there and a math lesson was going on, and I watched him intently, and Andreas was going. And at first I thought he was conducting the teacher, and eventually I said to him, what are you doing? And he said, I'm swiping. And I said, what do you mean you're swiping? He said, I don't like math, I want to swipe her on. And I went and spoke to the parent a little bit later, and I said, you know, he's doing this not just in math lesson, but actually every lesson. And the parent said, yeah, but that's what we do at home. And I said, well, what do you do at home? He said, well, when he comes home, we give him his iPad, and he does very lovely educational stuff on it. And I said, well, I don't think he's doing much because he's swiping all the time. So where is the responsibility, you know? I mean, I think sometimes we get into a pattern of behavior, even as parents, that make things easy for us at home with the family and all the pressures that are there, but sometimes we have to think, how good is that for our child generally, and how good is that for our child in an educational environment with other children, and having that good sense of the whole is really, really important so that education works today. And you know, I think you've touched on some really important things that are going to be good for you and for the school as you work forward. These are good questions. What can be done? How can we as parents and teachers give a really good education, even digital education, without encountering the risks and without experiencing the difficulties that can come with that? It's good. Just to finish with, what about Section A scenario? Did anybody look at that one? Did you get there with that? Yes? Okay.
So we had a student that became distressed, and he was thinking for a teacher to trust and say what he wanted and everything. So we needed to answer questions like, what are the appropriate terms of emotional support, what is acceptable and not acceptable, and so on. So we said that it's very important for the teacher to listen to the problem and have a one-to-one time. So she or he will give the time to the student to talk and have an active listening. We need to be open, we need to be honest, we need to be ready to help and listen and show empathy, and make them feel good and they can trust us. We shouldn't give any promises. That's the only thing. And it's really important to follow our safeguarding rules as we have as a school. And the other thing that we said that is very crucial is to stay neutral. We need to show affection, but just using words, because again, we need to think about our safeguarding. And yes, that's what we have discussed. I think we covered everything.
I think you've got it all in there. That's really good. Time has really beaten us, but one question to go home with. How can we better align our respective roles as parents and teachers to support the well-being of every child? That's what we need to be thinking about. Thank you very much, everybody.
I would like to thank Mr. Hilditch for this very interesting seminar. As we conclude our Wellbeing seminar series, we take a moment to reflect on the important conversations and valuable lessons shared throughout these 4 sessions. We began with understanding and preventing drug smoking and alcohol abuse, where we explored the importance of awareness, prevention, and making informed choices for healthier lives. We then focused on emotional intelligence and resilience in children, mental health awareness, highlighting the need to support emotional well-being and help young people develop resilience, empathy, and confidence. Our 3rd seminar, which was digital well-being and social media, encouraged us to think critically about our relationship with technology and the importance of maintaining balance and in an increasing digital world. Tonight's we heard, I don't have to say anything about that. So together, these seminars have shown us that well-being is not just one topic. It is a continuous journey that touches every aspect of our lives and our children's lives, physical, emotional, social, and digital. On behalf of the people who organized all this, I would like to sincerely thank all our speakers, facilitators, and participants for your time, engagement, and commitment throughout this series. Your contributions have made this series meaningful and impactful. Although tonight marks the end of this seminar series, we hope the conversations and insights gained will continue to inspire healthier choices, stronger relationships, and deeper commitment to well-being in our communities. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you Saturday. Thank you.